Yay, welcome everyone to a long time ago, and thanks for joining us as we delve into another episode of For the Love of Star Wars, where we bring on a special guest to talk about a piece of Star Wars media that they love and why it means so much to them. And this week we have another great guest. Our guest is someone well known in the collecting world. He is a man of taste, a man of nostalgia, a man with, frankly, a dangerous amount of toys in his house. Please welcome Stu, the Universal Toy Collector. Hello, Stu.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hello. How are we? All good?
Yeah, good. You?
Yeah. No, thank you very much for inviting me on again. I do enjoy a little chats. So thank you very much.
Very glad to have you back as always.
Thank you.
So straight into it then, Stu. What piece of Star Wars media have you chosen to talk about?
So it's the documentary from Star Wars to Jedi, the making of a saga. So yeah.
Excellent choice. Yeah, we've discussed one documentary before, which was Empire of Dreams.
Yeah.
This has got quite a sort of different focus and feel to it.
Definitely.
Before we start, I'll do my stats. We've moved to Rotten Tomatoes this season, and the audience score sits at a respectable 86%, which is pretty good for a behind-the-scenes documentary. You know, over 40 years old now. It was directed by Richard Schickel. I'm hoping I said that right. And narrated by a guy called Mark Hamill. I don't really know who that is. Originally aired on TV before eventually finding its way to VHS. And now, thankfully, to YouTube, where everyone can watch it for free. So tell us, Stu, what is it that you love about this documentary?
It was the first time I'd ever seen anything like it, like a behind the scenes, so to speak. Because we'd all seen Star Wars, we'd all seen Empire Strikes Back, we'd all seen Return of the Jedi, but this was the first sort of like, for me, the makings of the film and stuff like that. And I just found it so interesting to watch. It's people who are applying their trade, the best in the business that come together to make this movie or these movies, should I say. And there was a couple of bits that really stood out for me. It was the first time that I'd ever seen the clip with with Jabba the Hutt. You know, the original version that they got. They had this guy play Jabba the Hutt, and they wanted to were going to superimpose a stop motion creature over the top of him.
In the film Star Wars, there was a scene with Jabba himself, and he was always intended to be this loathsome, large, monstrous creature. But it wasn't possible to incorporate my design of Jabba when we shot the scene with the actors on the set. So I came up with the idea of shooting the scene with a man, and eventually I would mat in a stop-motion creature over the man.
Solo!
This is the scene George shot for Star Wars, but decided not to finish.
Solo!
Right here, Jabba. I've been waiting for you.
Have you now?
You didn't think I was going to run, did you?
Han, my boy, there are times you disappoint me. Why haven't you paid me? And why did you have to fry poor Greedo like that, after all we've been through together?
Look, Jabba, next time you want to talk to me, come see me yourself. Don't send one of these twerps.
Han, understand. I just can't afford to make exceptions.
But they decided to drop that. So I found that really interesting. I was like, wow, okay, you saw like a little bit behind the scenes there. And there's one thing that really stood out for me as well, was something that George Lucas said. He said, just because you have special effects, it doesn't mean to say they make the story. The special effects come with the story. Special effects without a story they're nothing. And that really sort of like stuck with me, sort of thing. And I watched it again today, if you know, truth be told. And yeah, it's just absolutely brilliant. So interesting. And you know, how they did the puppets and stuff like that, the work and stuff they did with the sail barge. You know, 4 months before filming, they were building this sail barge and stuff like that. It was a year before that they started to prep the area for the sail barge, and I just love all that kind of stuff. And then obviously you've got the Empire of Dreams as well, which is sort of like a bigger documentary, but this one was the first one I'd ever seen, and I just absolutely loved it. I thought it was superb.
Yeah, Martin, anything to add?
Yeah, well, I mean, I love this documentary, and when Stu said he was going to choose it, I was over the moon. This documentary was probably on repeat when I was a kid, just as much as the movies themselves.
Yeah,
because it was the first time really that I'd ever seen anything that went behind the scenes. Not just in the case of Star Wars, but any film. And there's so many little moments in that hour and 2 minute documentary, I think it is, that, you know, even to this day, you know, modern filmmakers could learn a lot from, I think. And it also shows the love and dedication of everybody that made those 3 films of the original trilogy, and the skill that they all had to have in order to make it the films that we love today. Obviously, there's so many things I've got in my notes to say that I loved about. We'll probably get into that, but yeah, absolutely love this documentary. It's a documentary of its time as well. There's no fanciness, is there? It's just this is how we did it, and we explain it in simple terms with behind the scenes footage, and as Stu said, a deleted scene or two. And as a Star Wars fan in the 80s, seeing a deleted scene, it was like, whoa, you know, wow, what is this, you know? And that probably spawned our interest for further releases down the line. Every 3 years there'd be a new Star Wars VHS box set released, and there'd be a new special feature or a deleted scene added to it, and each time you were like, oh, I've got to buy it just to see what this special feature is, even though I own the movie 10 times already. And I'm fairly sure that this documentary, for me personally, is what spawned that.
Yeah. See, for me, Stu, this was actually my first time in watching this, and I have said it before. Us doing this for the Love of Star Wars series has been great on the level that people introduce me to new sort of areas of Star Wars, and I get to see these things for the first time, which is brilliant, you know. And like I said, I watched Empire of Dreams before, and it was very different. It's very sort of felt like that was focused around the films more like individually, and the issues that they had behind getting them up together, whereas this one was really like a making of, like how they did all of the puppets. It was almost focused on the puppets, wasn't it? And and the creatures, and the amount that you get to see is just fantastic. Like really just enjoyed seeing like the creation of all these characters and whatnot. So what sort of struck you most watching this? Was it the creature design?
I think it was, because I know Georgie's a big fan of puppets and stuff like that. But so look, listen, I don't think there's anything wrong with CGI. I really don't. I think what they can do now is absolutely incredible. You've just got to look at like the Jurassic Park movies and stuff like that to see how good CGI can be. But for me, I think when you're doing stuff like puppetry, it's a little bit more personal. I think, you know, you can actually, you're interacting with that puppet or that person in a costume. You know, it's not going to be added to the screen a bit later on. So it gives people a chance to act with what they've got in front of them. And the craftsmanship and the work and the design that goes into making these, you know, the costumes and stuff like that, that, you know, the silicon for the puppets and everything like that as well, or whatever it is they use, it's just absolutely remarkable. And I prefer that in a way to CGI. I think you should use CGI when you don't have any other option but to use CGI. Like say, for example, the dinosaurs and stuff like that in Jurassic Park. You know, they look great on CGI, but for the puppets and stuff like that, and the characters that, you know, the Gamorrean guards, the people like Rees, Weequay, Nikto guards, and all that sort of stuff, Greedo, just the costumes and the designs and stuff like that. It just blows me away. And it's the little details to these background characters that you don't really see on screen for that long. And they're like, it's just incredible the amount of time and effort and work that have gone on to making these costumes for people that are only going to be seen for like a few minutes on film. It's just the attention to detail is superb.
Well, that was another thing that George Lucas sort of said about, wasn't it, when he was talking about the sail barge? It's not on screen for that long.
No.
And yet they built this, what was it, 300 foot almost?
It was
was that right? 200 and something feet of sail barge, and it's on screen for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, but I mean, for 4 months they started building that 4 months before they started filming, you know, and then they blew it up. You just think, oh.
And then I think what George Lucas said was about how people are so invested in the craft that they want to put things on screen for longer when it actually takes away from the story.
Yeah,
to have that sort of foresight in general was just, well, it shows what a creative genius I guess Lucas is.
Yeah, Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What about you, Martin? What sort of stood out most to you?
Yeah, I mean, without repeating what Stu said, I've written a note about the creatures, and I've put, the way they crafted the creatures back then was so skilled, and they said in the documentary it went from maquettes to clay models, to molded models, to painted prosthetics, to animatronics, and it went through each stage to get where it was. And it did make me think, and I agree with Stu, I wish they didn't use CGI quite so much as they do now. And I think the tide is turning a little bit with CGI, but it goes to show that we didn't question that Gamorrean guard was an alien creature. We didn't go, oh, that's a guy in a suit, because of the skill. Yoda, Jabba the Hutt, we didn't question for a second that they weren't real. But when you look at some of the more modern stuff and you see Jabba, and you see Yoda, you question,
it's just
actually,
not quite right, is it?
Yeah.
It's CGI. So I know that it's improved over the years, but it never beat the puppets or the models.
No.
I think it's fantastic. But and again, you said this, Adam, and I wrote down the quote. George Lucas said, "Action, plot, pace are all meaningless without good characters." And I'm basically, I mean, I don't want to allude to any other movies that we might have watched over the last 10 years, but I thought that was quite an interesting thing for him to say in a documentary over 35 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so much of the documentary stood out for me, to be honest with you. And when they did that helicopter shot and they sort of circled around the sail barge set, because it was all up on stilts, obviously, because they needed to make the Sarlacc pit look like it was a pit. And the craftsmanship in that was just absolutely amazing. I honestly, how much would you have loved to visit that set? I mean, it would have been, and then like you say, they blew it all up.
They blew it up. I think if I'd have worked on that for 4 months or maybe longer, and then like you see it blow up, you just think, oh no. I think I'd have been quite upset. But just going back to the puppets, Jabba the Hutt, when you first see him in the movie, when I first saw Return of the Jedi, I had no idea how they managed to pull that off, and what went into making the guy, the character. And then you've got the guys inside it that are doing all the arm movements, and it's quite claustrophobic. You got the different, the tongue and the lips and the pumps and stuff like that for the eyes, and one guy in there with a cigar blowing pipe. He had to blow the smoke up the pipe, and sort of thing. Then you got the little Mike Edmonds in the tail doing the tail. I just found it so intriguing. So I've got after seeing this documentary for the first time, I had a greater appreciation of watching the movies and just think how they've done it and how they make it all look so believable. I mean, it's testament to everybody who's worked on it, the puppeteers, the designers and stuff like that, the set designers, even the actors. I mean, I've said many a time before, the scene where Luke is on Dagobah with Yoda for that prolonged period of time, it's basically just him and the puppet on screen for like the longest time. But Mark Hamill's performance made that puppet so lifelike and believable. It was just an outstanding performance. And no, I know he's not the greatest actor in the world, but his performance was believable. And that's the whole point of an actor, to make you believe in what you're seeing. And he did that absolutely fantastically.
Going back to Jabba, it's kind of the little bits that they put in, the effort that they put in, that makes it all, isn't it? Like, I think the guy in the tail, I forget his name, sorry, Phil.
Mike Edmonds.
Is it Phil? Oh, Mike. Phil was in there somewhere.
Oh, Phil Tippett. There's Phil
Tippett was in there, but like you say, he was saying about how you move the tail in a certain way if he's angry, and you tap it, and just to think about those things, the smallest little details that make such a big difference to the performance of Jabba, which is a puppet.
Yeah,
it's insane, isn't it?
Brought that puppet to life, and that's the thing, isn't it? Even Carrie Fisher at some point was grossed out by him, wasn't she? And stuff like that.
I think the other thing that the documentary does really well is it turns they make all the characters that they created. They have like a lot of comedy skits, don't they? Where you have Salacious, and then you have Effont Mon, and they're all having these little skits before they fly over to London to film the set of Jabba's Palace, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. But another thing that came to mind is they a lot of people probably now are nearly 45-ish years later, who are only really have ever seen the special editions, get to see how they did things before the special edition. So you've obviously got Cy Snootles when she was actually a puppet before they turned her into an animated character, and how they had her on a platform before, and they had a guy actually
Tim Rose was underneath, wasn't he?
Dancing,
almost like a puppet, wasn't it? And everything he moved, she would move above, which I thought was.
Yeah, what did I call it? Was it maquettes? Did you? No, not maquette. What do you call
them?
No,
marionette.
Marionette. That's it.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, marionette. Yeah.
And again, that was one underneath.
Yeah. That was incredible. And then, of course, the creme de la creme was the Rancor monster. The fact that they originally decided they were going to have a guy in a suit, but then they scrapped that and they used a hand puppet. And even to this day, what you see on screen is a hand puppet, and it's hard to believe. 45 years later that's a hand puppet. It doesn't look fantastic, don't get me wrong, but if you were to say to someone who watched it for the first time, oh, that was some guy, he's got his hand up controlling the mouth, I genuinely think that people, they go, what?
But you've got to realize though, at the time that was state of the art. I didn't realize it was a puppet. I know it's stop motion and stuff like that, but and then you got to take into consideration the quality of the screens that we were watching stuff on back in those days. It weren't 4K 8K TVs and stuff like that. So unfortunately, as time progresses, the quality of the screen gets better, your visual viewing gets better, but that standard of movie sort of like found out a little bit, doesn't it? But I mean, it was still just incredible to see that it was like an 18-inch hand puppet. And then when George Lucas was in there, like telling him this is what he wants him to do when he eats the Memorial Guard, turn around and he's got his hand hanging out his mouth. It's just incredible. It really was.
Yeah, definitely. I think the documentary as well, it definitely gives you an insight, because there was always rumors for years and years, wasn't there, that even though Richard Marquand directed Return the Jedi, it was really George Lucas, and he was only really there because George couldn't direct it because he'd been sacked from the Directors Guild, or he'd left for the Directors Guild because of not putting people's names in the credits. But from this documentary, you can clearly see that he is micromanaging every single department, including Richard Marquand. There's a scene where there's a group of actors stood around Richard Marquand, and they're all looking at George, and George is the one that's telling them what they've got to do. So again, there's a little bit of history in this documentary as well, and I know George has a reputation for not being perhaps the best director in the world. But in this documentary, you see him directing the actors a fair amount of time. So again, that's really nice to see, because you've never really got to see that before. So that was really, really cool part of the documentary.
I think by this point though, I think you could sort of say he wasn't the best director in the world, maybe on the first Star Wars, but by this point I think he had such a clear vision, didn't he, that he probably was a bit more ready to speak his mind.
He said himself, didn't he? The first movie, Star Wars, was an unknown. He didn't know the galaxy. He didn't know the universe that he created. No one sort of really knew what was going on. But then, because it was so successful, he went and obviously did Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. By Return of the Jedi, he knew the galaxy. He knew the universe that he created and stuff like that. So he could then probably feel a little bit more comfortable with what he wanted and how he came across as someone like a director or a producer or writer and stuff like that, to get his points across. And so he had that sort of like freedom to express himself a little bit more and get what he wanted from people, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do you sort of feel like this documentary foreshadowed the special editions to come as well, Stu?
I've got that in my notes. I mean, there's a line, isn't there, that Mark Hamill says when he's narrating it, that everybody loved the cantina sequence except for George, and then George literally says, "Oh God, I was really disappointed with it." And there he is on film saying that, and basically the prequels are in his mind already. I think. Sorry, the special editions are in his mind already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a shame. I don't think there's anything wrong with the original cut, the original version that they did with that cantina scene. I mean, look, the way they filmed it, the way they cut it and stuff like that. It just looked really cool. I mean, the atmosphere was definitely there. You could feel the atmosphere. It was some like wild space bar, wasn't it? Sort of thing, like a scoundrels and stuff like that, and ruffians and stuff. So I certainly picked that up from the original cut of it. And to be honest with you, I kind of wish he hadn't have done the special edition, where he's added CGI characters, because I just don't think they fit within that sort of like that scene, because you've got real life animatronics and puppets and people in costumes and stuff like that, which looked absolutely fantastic. But then you've got like these new CGI characters that just don't seem to sort of like fit in with the environment, so to speak.
Yeah, I get that. So going back then, if you had the choice, you would always choose to watch the original cuts. You wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't
We'll
mind.
get to you in a minute, Martin.
I don't mind the special editions. I like it because they can clean it up. They cleaned certain aspects up.
Yeah.
I don't agree with a lot of the stuff they did. I wish they hadn't put Jabba in the scene. I think they could have done without that. They could have done without the CGI within
Just took it too far, almost.
Took it too far, yeah. But even the streets of Tatooine, with the Ronto and stuff like that, it was good at the time, but I just don't think that kind of CGI has aged that well. And that's the problem with CGI, isn't it? It just, yeah.
What are you saying then, Martin?
I'm going to keep it short because I want to talk about the documentary. But what I would say is I wholeheartedly think the special editions are better than the original cut. And I grew up with the original cut. But I would agree with Stu that the biggest, or the worst part of the special editions for me is that whole sequence of them flying into Mos Eisley on the land speeder, all the way up to them entering the cantina.
Yeah.
That just looks shocking by today's standards. And I do wonder if George had still owned the company, whether he would have gone back again like he did with Jabba, because Jabba's changed 3 times in the special edition, to the point now where he's actually quite acceptable in my eyes. But yeah, I think it doesn't look good at all. It looks terrible. But overall, I think for me personally, the special editions are a better version of the films.
Okay.
Send hate in the comments. Just quickly before we go on to the next question, I just wanted to highlight a moment which I don't know if you guys laughed at it, but they're sort of practicing a scene where Han's hanging upside down.
Yeah. I know what you're going to say.
And he says no to Mark Hamill. He says no, we've got to say it together, otherwise it won't be funny. So they practice it, and it's like.
So if you could just get him louder on that. So then the next guy says, more firewood. Okay. I look to Mark and say, well, that didn't do us very much good.
I say, but these are my friends. 3PO, tell them they must be set free. Then who?
3PO, tell them if they don't do as you wish, you'll become angry and use your magic.
But Master Luke, what magic? I couldn't possibly.
Tell them.
It's not going to work as a joke. Unless we both say exactly the same thing.
Okay, what do you want to say?
Exact same
tell
pace.
Them or just...
Tell them. Let's both do it carefully.
Okay. Tell them.
Oh, can I do it too?
No.
Okay.
Tell them. And then you hear Carrie Fisher out of shot saying, oh, can I say it as well? And they both turned around and went, no. And it's, I mean, I'm not doing it justice. Go back and watch it. Or I might pop it in the edit now. But it was really, really funny. And we didn't get that sort of stuff, from making of documentaries. And it's just another example of why this documentary is absolutely stellar. And if you haven't seen it and you're a Star Wars fan, you really are missing out.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite interesting. I think we said it when we were talking about Empire of Dreams, is that they had the foresight to film all of this extra footage and put it out there. Like, how often does that ever happen?
Well, like I say, this is the first time I'd seen anything like it, like a behind the scenes sort of thing. So when it was, I saw it in the TV Times or whatever it was, the Radio Times. oh, this is going to be coming out and stuff like that. I was like, oh wow! So I sat and watched it, and like obviously you record it because we had the video recorders in those days, so I recorded it, and yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And and since then I've watched other sort of like documentaries, like say for example the Lord of the Rings, the making of the Lord of the Rings, the special editions and stuff like that. I love watching all that sort of stuff. Empire of Dreams, again, another absolutely fantastic one. So yeah.
Yeah, I think George, again, how many times do we say it? But again, he had foresight. He had a second camera unit that was recording all the behind the scenes stuff, and nobody ever did that sort of thing. And it's just another example of the genius of the man, because he knew that people would be interested. And again, and maybe I'm being mercenary by saying this, but he knew he'd be able to make a bit more money, perhaps, by doing that, because a lot of people went out and bought the VHS tapes. And there's another actual documentary, well, there's two more documentaries actually for the original trilogy, but there's one that came out just before this one called Classic Creatures, which
that was with Billy D. Williams, wasn't it?
Billy D. Williams, and that one just concentrates on the Return of the Jedi and some Empire Strikes Back creatures, and that one is equally as good if you're interested to know how they made all the creatures and everything. So he certainly had enough footage, and of course they used footage that we'd never seen before in Empire of Dreams as well. So it only makes me wonder what they're sitting on in the archives, things that we've never seen, that they've never released, pictures, even just photographs that we've never seen. There must be so much there that we'd love. As Star Wars fans, we eat this stuff up. We want to see how it was made, and we want to see those funny moments behind the cameras and stuff. So I can't say enough good things about it, to be honest with you. But I do have a question. The speeder bike section of the documentary, Stu.
How interesting is that?
Yeah.
How interesting was that? I mean,
give us your feelings on that.
So I remember watching that film as a kid at the theatre for the first time, Return of the Jedi, and then seeing those speeder bikes and flying through the forest and stuff like that. And you got the front of the speeder bike, and you got all the the shrubbery going past at a great speed, and you just think that is absolutely incredible, absolutely incredible. Then you see how they make it, and you just think, wow. So as they said in the documentary, it was the fastest scene in the film, but it was the slowest one to sort of take. And then they were using the toys, weren't they, to do the filming and stuff like that. And who was it? Dennis Muren was there with Joe Johnston, and they were going, "Oh, right, well, maybe we should try this and try that." And you go, "Yeah, okay, let's try it." Just absolute geniuses at work, and I just love the way they did their storyboards and it's brilliant. Absolutely loved it.
It's just textbook showing all the different layers that they had to do in order to make that scene. There's so many different layers, and again the they do a video version of storyboards, and the name was escaping me us all, but that to me, I think that was probably one of the first times that was ever done in a movie. And now they don't make movies unless they have an animatronic animated version of the whole movie, so that the actors can sit and watch. They even plan out where the camera is going to sit on these animatronics now. So again, revolutionary that George and Lucasfilm sort of pioneered this way of making films. And again, I'm going to say it again, if you haven't seen this documentary, you've got to go and check it out. It's absolutely incredible, really good, and Stu's made an absolutely amazing choice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I should thank you for putting it out there so that I get to watch it for the first time as well, because it is really different to Empire of Dreams, and it's it shows a different.
Well, it is. I mean, so like you say, Empire of Dreams is absolutely. I love that as well, but that's focusing on the start and the struggles of everything like that, and how they went through the process of auditioning for people and all that sort of stuff. Where this is just basically focused on how it was made with the puppets and the creatures and stuff like that. But what I liked about it as well is that they allude to the story a lot as well. At the end where you've got Vader and Luke confronting each other in the Death Star, and then the Emperor's there, and he's sort of like goading them both on and stuff like that. And again, it's that scene. And George was like, well, we wanted to find a way of how do we get Luke to sort of change his mind, and and that spark sets off in him, and what could we use? And then it was like, okay, well, then we sort of dawned on me, it was there all the time. if you won't turn, maybe your sister will. And to me, that is absolute genius. What a great line that is. Absolutely superb. And another thing as well, the lightsaber battles, you know, choreography wise, are they as grand and as visually stunning as the prequels and the other lightsaber battles we've had? No, they're not. But I tell you what, there's a lot more heart and soul in those, and there's a lot riding on those lightsaber battles. So yeah, just absolutely fantastic. And just quickly as well, when George Lucas said about like Darth Vader, you know, revealing that he's like a human and stuff like that, and you know, will fans be able to accept it? Because you know, what were people expecting? You know, but then he turned around and said, well, it's just based on human emotions and human feelings and stuff like that, and stuff like that. So, I just absolute genius of a man. Fantastic movies, and yeah, what a great documentary.
Okay, then a final question from us, as always. What made this documentary feel like Star Wars to you?
It's just Star Wars, isn't it?
Yeah,
because it's Star Wars, as T would say. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's just it. Look, we love the films, but I think, like I said, after watching that for the first time as a kid, I certainly had a greater appreciation of the films because of it, and just seeing how they did it, and it's just absolutely genius. And I, you know, it's inspiring to see those kind of things, and that when I watch that kind of thing, and I look at it and think, oh, I wish I would have been involved in that somehow, like being, you know, into movie making and stuff like that, and set designs and stuff like that, and all that kind of stuff. You just think, wow, that would be so cool just to be in a little bit part of that, whether it's behind the scenes, in front of the camera. But it's just, wow, just magic, absolute magic.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Stu, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you on, as always. To everyone watching, let us know in the comments if you've seen this documentary and what you enjoyed most about it. Make sure you go and check out Stu's channel, The Universal Toy Collector. We'll put the link in the description below. Give him a sub whilst you're there. We'll be back soon with another great guest and another great Star Wars chat. Until then, I'm off to sculpt a maquette of Stu. We'll see you later.